What if I told you that exercise was not just for your body, but for your brain, medicine for your brain as well? Just think about it. Imagine if every step you take, every weight you lift, it is actually rewiring your brain, boosting your memory, and protecting you from cognitive decline. Stay with us both today as we explore how movement can literally change your mind. This is a blueprint for a sharper and healthier brain. So I'm quite excited. And so quite excited to have this topic, Bob, especially here with you, our brain researcher. I know you're going to have some great insights on that. But of course, let me finish introducing Bob Levine. So Bob is a renowned brain researcher with a specialization also in the elimination of pain without drugs. I'm Tim Daniels, a wellness plan manager. That's a general contractor for your health, working across various aspects and disciplines to help you build the life that you want and the body that you want to live in for joy. Our colleague Breck Rice is missing from us here today. He's at a conference, but he is good on community wellness and very informed on medication and the impacts and usage of it. But together we are WellWaveNOW, but Bob and I will carry on without Breck today on this exploration of exercise medicine for the brain. So, and that's, I point that out, Bob, because, last week we were doing movement snacks on how that impacted exercise and health. I see you smile there. I know how you love those wellness snacks.
Movement snacks. I had never heard that before. I really like it. Movement
Oh, I think
snacks.
so.
Yeah.
But, we concentrated really on that, how that was actually medicine for the body. Yeah, and in this series, you were the one who rightly pointed out was not only we should only talk about exercise as medicine, but the mind and body connection. And so often that's separated. So it began, a thought, something I, thought about off and on, I'm sure you have as well, is whether or not people talk about how exercise can really is good for cardiovascular health and all the things we talked about. So somebody can go back to and take a look and review on our replay, which we'll put out, which we have put up. But also it began to think, can it affect your mind? Is it really exercise and can it be medicine for your mind to help you in a preventative and a rehabilitative state and a recuperative state on that? So that's what we want to talk about today and put that in the context of kind of neuroplasticity. But me being a simple, oh boy, I will admit I am a Republican, but I'm prefacing this being a humble Nebraskan like Tim Walls out of West Point, Nebraska, but I'm from Grand Island, Nebraska. That neuroplasticity is a big word to me, Bob. So I need one of you sophisticated, well-educated city folks
Oh
to
gosh.
explain that. So take it away if you would on that.
All right, all right. So first of all, I want you to know that I keep things as simple as possible because it's important. I mean, if it gets too complicated, nobody can follow it anyway. They'll never remember it. So neuroplasticity. Okay, plasticity means changeability.
Mhm.
So changeability in nerve connection. So when you define neuroplasticity, it's the ability of the brain to form and reorganize synaptic connections. So what are synaptic connections? Those are the nerve is traveling down, and at the end, it forms a synapse where the neurotransmitter is released onto the chain of neurotransmitters. So there's chains of neurons, and the synaptic connections are where the synapse of one nerve cell uh, touches and is in connectivity with the uh, cell body or the beginning of the next nerve cell, and then hence it goes down the train just like that. So it's the ability of the brain to form and reorganize synaptic connections, right? Especially
Yes.
in response to learning, right?
Right.
Learning new experiences, having experiences that are new and different, and also following injury. We know that the brain can remodel itself in certain conditions. People who get strokes, they recover from strokes. And the
Mhm.
reason why they're able to recover most likely is because of neuroplasticity, the fact that other nerve cells in the brain are taking over the function of nerves that have since died because of the stroke. They were flooded out by blood, blood leakage and things like that. So that would be the straight definition, if that's helpful, Tim. Okay.
Very helpful, Bob. I appreciate it. So flexibility, rewiring, recovery. So in that regard, do you think that exercise plays a role on that, and then in the rewiring in general, and then in the health of the brain as well? And if so, how, Bob?
Let's talk about the effect of exercise on the brain in general first. So, first of all, one thing we know about exercise is it increases blood flow throughout the body. And so when you're getting more blood flow to the brain, what are you getting going into the brain? You're getting more oxygen, you're getting more nutrients, you're getting the removal of what? The removal of waste products, right? And so exercise can really be helpful in terms of overall brain physiological function. It's a lot like pulse electromagnetic field
Yeah,
devices,
yeah,
which also increase blood flow. Say something about that, please.
yeah, sure. And so, PEMF. So again, it's Bob mentioned it's pulse electromagnetic field. Sometimes you hear say frequency, but most commonly it's pulse electromagnetic field therapy. And long history of that, been around for a long time. NASA has a version that uses on the space station as well. But part of it works at really the electrical level of the body to stimulate processes. And one of those is it will stimulate blood flow at a microvessel level. And so that stimulates that blood flow, as you talk about carrying oxygen and nutrients places, removing metabolic waste. It's also been shown that the brain has a circulatory system called the lymphatic system that wasn't known until the past few years. And so it helps with that sort of lymphatic system too, that cleans out waste and helps regenerate. So I like it from the standpoint, it's a good supplement to for people who may not, in a lot of ways, but in this case, we're talking about it's a good supplement for people who may not be able to physically exercise as much, but also what it also does, because it's also used by a lot of athletes to help them train harder and longer, recover faster. So it can enable one to exercise more. So it helps them both ways, Bob.
Yeah, so the PEMF therapy, which I really love because it helped me basically clear out lung congestion that I had for about 10 years and didn't really know how to solve it. And I just got fortunate to be able to get a PEMF mat. And wasn't really expecting anything to happen with the lung congestion I had because physicians were telling me that, well, that's normal. Everybody has a little bit of that. And I said, really? That doesn't make any sense to me. I didn't say that to them. I just said, okay, thank you very much. But then I went off and ended up using the mat. And after 2 months of using the mat, I no longer had any lung congestion, no wheezing, no funny noises when I would lay down. It was really amazing. So the PMF mat can supplement and be synergistic with the exercise. So the two can work together to create a better result, let's say, which is
Right.
what synergy means. 2 + 2 = 10.
Yep.
Yeah, synergy that way. So in general, that's what exercise is doing to the brain. Yeah, go Tim.
Well, one comment that just came to mind. One of the things that PEMF in general is thought to do is increase something like the dopamine in brains, which is, as it pertains to some of the things that Parkinson's people are missing. So where that came to mind, tying it back to the brain, and you may have been heading down this line as well. I think exercise similarly can help the brain produce some chemicals that are helpful to it.
Yeah, I can address that, Tim. I studied Parkinson's disease for decades, so I'm very familiar with what goes on in Parkinson's disease and the dopamine system, the dopamine neuronal system in the brain. When you look at exercise and what areas of the brain are affected, many areas are affected. I'm going to talk about, let's say, maybe three of them. Okay, one is the caudate nucleus. So that's an area of the brain deep inside the brain. It's a component of what's called the striatum, and that's a primary dopamine terminal area. The dopamine nerves come into the caudate nucleus, and the terminals end there on other cells, other neurons, and dopamine gets released from there. So in Parkinson's disease, one of the many things that's happening is that the dopamine is not made in those cells to the extent that it needs to be made, and therefore you have what's called a dopamine deficiency condition. So we know that the exercise can enhance the production of dopamine and serotonin and some other neurotransmitters. So um, somebody with Parkinson's disease, for instance, can get real benefits with any kind of exercise that they can do. And I think you brought up examples, Tim, of Parkinson's disease in boxing, right?
Yeah, they have this thing they call rock steady boxing. So they don't, so it's not sparring, it's not engaging in that. They don't pummel each other.
That would probably cause more problems than the disease itself.
But indeed, it's thought and found to be so far one of the most effective exercise for Parkinson's, helping with the rigidity, with the stiffness, helping because of the fact of that lack of, in some cases, lack of dopamine, kind of helping it replace and rewire. And so it's been shown to be a lot of. I always hesitate on this one with you, Bob, because I know how you really have looked at studies and sometimes what you think of studies, and studies have shown that it has helped decrease the symptoms and frequency of symptoms, the duration of symptoms, just through that boxing with them. So I encourage anyone out there that's has someone with Parkinson to really look into that rock steady, especially I think it may have gone beyond the US even. So I'd look at that rock steady boxing and what it really provides and been shown to help for.
Yeah, and all kinds of exercise can be helpful too. So the caudate nucleus is one area of the brain that's involved with both motor processes, motor meaning uh, movement, right? So motor processes are movement processes, and as we talked about, Parkinson's disease is primarily a motor deficiency condition, abnormal movements, right? And the caudate nucleus is also involved with non-motor functions of, like such as procedural learning, associative learning, and also it's involved with an inhibitory control of action. So, when you have subtle movements, you need the dopamine system to coordinate this whole movement strategy, and that's why you see people with Parkinson's disease, they don't have the inhibitory control anymore of dopamine, so they get shakiness and dysfunctional walking patterns and a whole slew of other symptoms that come with Parkinson's disease. So the caudate nucleus is really a critical brain area where the caudate and dopamine are involved with both motor processes and non-motor processes, and also executive functions. Some of the were thoughts, executive functions are thoughts, emotions, and actions. Are that's what executive functions are, to achieve goals, and that's where they're managed in these areas. And the caudate nucleus is one area where executive functions are managed. So that's one area of the brain. Another area of the brain is the prefrontal cortex, and the prefrontal cortex is really a great area. It's responsible for thinking, problem solving, and other types of executive functions. So a third area to think about is hippocampus, and everybody loves to talk about the hippocampus in terms of involvement in memory. Simple experiments showed when you ablate or kill nerve cells in the hippocampus, memory gets really wiped out. And they've shown that humans who've had accidents where the hippocampus has been impaired, they have memory problems. So we know the hippocampus is somehow linked tightly to memory. And so it's also involved in learning and emotions. So hippocampus is an important area. And the thing about exercise is that it increases the nerve functionality in these three areas of the brain and others. So that's why exercise is so important. And people need to realize that they just need to get some exercise. They don't have to be, rock star athletes, right? We just got to get out there and get something. Go for walks. Go for riding the bike, swimming in the pool. The more exercise you can get, the better off you're going to be in general, right? So
Yeah, they got to take our movement snacks, Bob.
that's right. The movement snacks, those little bursts of activity, the bursts of walking from the parking lot, parking a little bit further away, which I did on my trip that I just recently took to take my son to college in Michigan. I drove 3,000 miles in 3 days to get him up there and back.
Beautiful.
Get me back here in time for this.
That's right. Good, yeah, good stamina, and you did that quick.
Yeah, it was really quick. But at any rate, so movement stacks involved like getting out of the car and going for a walk around the parking lot or somewhere just to get some movement, because otherwise you're sitting in the car and it's just, what the problem with that is. So, sure. But the movement snacks kept me from having difficulties with any kind of pain in my body anywhere. I didn't have any issues because I got up, got out, walked around, did a few little stretches and some of my effective muscle release routines I've talked about before here. And by the way, I just want to put a plug in for those. And if somebody wants to know about effective muscle release, they can contact me. I'll put my contact information in the chat. Maybe Tim, you can put all of our contact information in the chat. But the effective muscle release routines I've had when I've led programs, large group programs from the stage. I had a few Parkinson patients in those programs, and they got dramatic benefits from helping release muscles that were in excess contraction and stuck in those ways. So anyway, that's the skinny, if you will, on the caudate nucleus, the prefrontal cortex, and the hippocampus in terms of brain areas.
Right. Yeah. So talk to me a little bit, Bob, about neurons and what they really do, and what are they, and what do they enable inside of us?
Well, you got to have proper nerve function, or the whole human being doesn't work right. So that's so, and all of the conditions and all of the neurological and psychiatric conditions in the brain, we have done our best to associate with dysfunctional nerve involvement, right? Like Parkinson's disease, a dopamine deficiency condition where we treat it with dopamine agonists or dopamine replacement, like L-DOPA gets converted, gets taken up in the brain and converted to L-DOPA. Gets converted to dopamine, and it helps alleviate the dopamine deficiency condition. And then people who have the dysfunctional Parkinsonian symptomology in terms of dysfunctional movement, that movement will normalize for a while. So L-DOPA is a great thing, and then oftentimes that will stop working after several years, and then we have to go with what we call dopamine receptor agonists. An agonist is something that binds to a receptor and stimulates that receptor, whereas a dopamine antagonist will block the dopamine receptor and keep the dopamine from getting to the receptor. So we use dopamine agonists, which mimic the dopamine. They bind to the dopamine receptor on the next nerve cell in the train of nerve cells, and then that can also alleviate symptoms. So
the neurons, if I understand, part of that whole production process and conversion process, but they're also aren't they also like a kind of a basic unit in the brain, the nerve cell, and are responsible for signaling and
oh yeah, well, all the communication is a neurochemical. It's a neurochemical activity. There's electrical activity that's going from nerve to nerve to nerve, and then there's chemical activity, which are the neurotransmitters like dopamine, norepinephrine, epinephrine, serotonin. There's all kinds of peptide and neurotransmitters and neuromodulators. It's a very complicated system of the brain, obviously, and we don't really know that much, but we know enough to be dangerous, I would say.
Sure. And then I kind of took us down that pathway a little bit because as I looked at, I've always been, being both of us having been jocks in our younger days. I'm sure we always heard the term dumb jock back in those days, but I ran across very few good athletes that were really dumb. And so I always thought about, and actually during wrestling season, even though for most of my career, I trained year round, but at a different level. But during wrestling season, and especially in college when I was working out 4 times a day, I actually felt sharper and more concentrated, more ability. So I always kind of felt that exercise did something for us in concentrated wise. And then when I ran my home care agency, as we talked about earlier, and saw people respond, their strokes respond and come back after occupational therapy and other things, led me down that path a little more. So let me just tell you, and as I looked at it, there's some thought that exercise actually impacts the hormones, 2 of the hormones that are responsible for generating new neurons and preserving them and things of that nature, Bob.
Well, Tim, it used to be thought that nerve cells could not divide. Couldn't make new nerve cells. You had a complement of nerve cells that came about at birth, and that's all you had, and that was it. But now we've shown that you can replace nerve cells, which is really fantastic because things can happen in the brain that we thought never could happen in terms of neuroplasticity, laying down new nerve pathways, and the whole concept of neuroplasticity is really fascinating. And I think one of the best examples is in stroke recovery. The people who have nerve cells that have clearly, nerve pathways that have clearly, let's say, died. The nerve cells are knocked out. and yet other cells, it can be shown that other cellular pathways, neurochemical pathways, take over the function and bring back bring back movement, normal movement. People who get strokes sometimes are impaired in terms of movement, that those movements can come back. There could be speech impairment, the speech can come back.
Yep.
The thought processes can be really cloudy for a while, that can come back. So it's really, so neuroplasticity is really important in the brain.
Right. Yeah, it does. Like I said, does that level of recovery. I had a history of strokes, both with both my parents, and then in the home care number doesn't always come back, but a very, very high amount with the right type of therapy and approach, right type of exercise, and other thing, it can make significant improvements in recovery. So yeah, demonstrated rewiring on that.
Absolutely, yeah, no doubt about it. Yeah, there's so much to exercise in the brain. I mean, exercise is increasing neurotransmitter synthesis and release in certain areas of the brain. It's contributing to overall enhancement of physiological function. And exercise by itself, you can't rely. I don't believe you can rely on exercise by itself to handle everything. Like, exercise is great for during the exercising, limiting stress and eliminating stress. People always say they feel much better when they exercise or during exercise.
Right.
So, but it's certainly an important component of the whole process of minimizing stress in life, because that's so important, minimizing stress in general.
Right. And just along those lines, right, when you minimize the stress, you're keeping the cortisol from overflowing, overloading the body, and that overload of that can also damage the brain. So there's you just pointed out another area, right? Just in that stress elimination, where exercise really is medication for the medicine.
Yeah, there you go. Exercise is medication. You got that in there. That's good.
Yeah.
That's good.
Well, I agree with you on that. You got to, the multimodal approach is best, or is often necessary. Yet the fact that exercise that isn't a chemical, well, it produces natural chemicals, but it's not medication you put into you. The fact that that natural approach can do so much for us is amazing to me and powerful. And I think I know we talked about it once or twice in a couple of other sessions, but people look at that exercise as just a way of energy or staying fit. But I think that's one of the reasons I want to do this series we're doing on. They really also should think about it really as medicine for their body, truly towards their overall well-being, just not for being fit and looking good type of thing.
Exactly. It's way more than looking good. It's really, really important. I mean, because it's almost like you want to take your whole cardiovascular system and allow it to do this. The heart's doing this more when you are exercising. The blood vessels are opening up, getting more blood flow. And all those changes, like the accordion effect, I mean, that's so important. It's just like when you're exercising, you want to have full range of motion. We talked about, I think it was last week, we talked about, exercise, and I brought up the PACE program by Dr. Peters, whereby, you want to like have bursts of activity, just like the movement stacks, a little bit of burst here and a burst there, just to have the variability, because the only thing you really want to keep totally constant in your life is blood sugar.
And why is that again, Bob?
Okay, so yeah, because otherwise you get the carbohydrate roller coaster. So when people are eating high carbohydrate diets and drinking sugars and juices and cokes, so what happens is the blood glucose goes way up real fast, and then the pancreas has to release insulin to bring it back down, and then oftentimes it comes down below the appropriate level, and then people start to crave, and what do they go for? Carbohydrates, and they get the upswing, insulin comes in, and the down. So I call that the carbohydrate roller coaster. And and if people would keep blood sugar stable as possible, which means that you don't drink a soda. Well, soda's like, pardon me, soda's like poison anyway. It's really
what's a soda? It's a soda, Bob. Sure, it's not. Is that same as a pop?
Pop, yeah, pop soda. I won't use any generic terms, but we know what they are. Anything that's just sugar water with like 40 grams or more of sugar in it per 12 ounces. That's what I call soda.
Yeah, but I had to just put that Midwest thing in there. Yeah, I think I might have mentioned it one time before that I was out on Long Island here on the east, and I walked into a cafeteria, and I told the guy, "Can I have a pop? I need a pop." And he just kept he just kept looking at me. And finally, I realized where I was at, and I said, "Soda." And he said, "Yeah." And for a while, I looked. He's, being a New Yorker, I thought he was good. After look at that, I was going to draw back his fist and give me a pop.
It's gonna pop you. Yeah, that's right. Yeah, so that's what I say about it. I mean, I have to bring it up every show about insulin stability. So you want to have balanced food intake. If you're going to be taking in some carbohydrate loaded situation, you want to have appropriate protein and appropriate fat to go with it, and that causes a very stable blood sugar level. It doesn't stimulate the pancreas to get active, and it doesn't cause that carbohydrate roller coaster. And eventually, when people do that, they're on the carbohydrate roller coaster day after day, year after year. But that's what leads to type 2 diabetes, right?
Right.
And they've also shown, which is very interesting, in terms of exercise and nutrition together, can help with Alzheimer's disease.
Right.
Okay, so you can actually reverse it with appropriate lifestyle changes that involve exercise and involve proper nutrition, and of course, eliminating stress, which is a whole other story in itself.
Yeah, but that's actually one of the questions we have is when it sort of talks that is. I'll expand that question. The question was, do you think exercise can prevent any neurodegenerative disease? I'll expand it, right, where you say, can it help you recover from any or reverse any type of neurodegenerative disease? So you just talked to it in regards to Alzheimer's in that respect.
Yeah, and then we talked earlier about Parkinson's disease, movement disorders. So exercise is really so important, and I don't even think I get enough. I got to get out there more. Every time we talk about this, I say I'm going to go get on my bike and go for a bike ride.
Yeah. Well, yes and no. It's just what we talked about about before. Again, I don't think unless I get totally regenerate, I'll never work out like I used to. I mean, at my peak, right? Like I said, 4 hours a day, where I'd run in the morning, run at least 2 miles in the morning. And then I'd have a wrestling practice that would go for a couple of hours sometimes, and I would lift lift at night or do body weight exercises. And then sometimes also during the day, then I just go and drill myself. So I'll never do certain drills. Well, I will probably never do that again. Rarely do I get 2 workouts a day, but for most of what we're talking about, it's not necessarily necessary to do that much, right? I think that was another question that came through with, well, how much exercise? Well, one could go to the American Heart Association and take a look. I think, don't hold me to this, but I think it's like 150 minutes of aerobic exercise that they recommend. They recommend
per what unit time per week?
Per week.
Yeah.
Per week. And then similarly, it's 2 to 3 times per week of resistance training of like 30 minutes each on that. And so you build it in, that's not all that much. And then, but as we talked about, I think you supplement. So if you can do that amount, great, and you should. But you also supplement that with those movement snacks that we talked about, which is every hour or so, especially if you're in a sedentary job or on Zoom like we are quite a bit. Every hour you get up and you move around for 1 to 5 minutes, where you're stretching, some body weight exercises, or do a little dancing, things of that nature, Bob.
Well, Tim, that's why I teach proper walking, and because the average person takes between 2,000 and 15,000 steps every day, which is a big part of the 30 to 50,000 repetitive movements every day. And so, walking is a big deal, but you got to walk properly too. So, I have a free course actually on the Great Discovery platform that teaches proper walking. I don't know if you have that link. You can drop it.
I don't have that link, but if you get that link to me, Bob, we will certainly get it. We put our replays up on YouTube, which are usually at the Wellness Wave Club with Tim Daniels is that YouTube, and the people go there. I'll also make sure I do have it set. I do have a thing set separately for that one. Yes. And so it's always up there in our replays, so people can go and take a look at it and find it there.
Okay, so I'll get you that link and you can put it up there. That'd be great.
Well, I just rethought about it, Bob. because I do have that link. I just don't have it handy to put into the chat because I always put it into those. It's always in the replays. It's the
Okay, good. All right,
first
perfect. That's good.
first things in our note in the descriptions where you can go to your link on the Great Discovery and get that free course.
Yeah, I mean, we've had people lower their blood pressure simply by walking properly because when you do the proper walking of the heel toe and rolling up on the ball of the back foot before the front heel touches, that's the key.
Right.
Rolling up on the ball of the back foot before the front heel touches, you're getting the calf muscle to pump, and
Right.
that's pumping the blood back up to the heart, so the heart's not working as hard, which is beautiful, you know. And
Mhm.
when we sit all day long, the heart's working harder because all the blood is pooling in our legs. Some people sit down, they have edema in their feet from sitting too long, right?
Right.
So getting up and walking around is really a great thing to do.
Okay. Then a question we had similarly is so there's what going down the types of exercise, what do each one of those do for for the brain in this context, this medicine? So I think we've got three types of exercise that put out. We talked a little about aerobic. We'll go back and we can revisit well, we can talk about what that actually does for the brain. You got the resistance training, and then you've got what although it can span a couple of ways, but I call it the mind body exercises. What are the mind body exercises starting from reverse and going back up? The mind body exercises to me are things such as yoga, such as Tai Chi, where you're combining both the mental concentration with the movement and with breathing. So everything is connected there. Now, one of the things that has been shown to do is to kind of help build up what's called a cognitive reserve, which is increase the gray matter of the brain, increase resiliency of the brain. And that cognitive reserve is such as saying, look, just like if you've got a reserve of energy when you need an extra burst to go do something, you've got an extra um, gallon of gas around there in case you run out, you can put that in. That's that same thing concept with the brain, that as you get older, some brain cells are going to die off. They might not replace themselves as fast, but if you build up an excess capacity, then you can slow the decline. So they're also been shown for that excess capacity for that cognitive reserve, help to slow the decline of the brain. The aerobic exercise gets back to what you were talking to earlier in one of the comments, which that really drives the blood flow. The blood flow drives the oxygenation to the brain. That helps with maintaining of the cells up there, keeping them from dying off too soon, being able to replenish themselves, and things of that type.
Sounds good.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. And so what about I don't know, maybe we should talk about some of our personal experiences with exercise and cognitive function. I mean,
Yeah, we can. I'll put that back to you. But one thing I forgot the resistance training, and that well. So the aerobic exercise for people. I don't want to assume anything here. That that's the good walking at a decent pace. That's swimming. That's cycling. That's running. Whichever you can do for your capacity and appropriate for your age bracket and condition. The resistance training is the lifting of weights. Is the body weight exercises, things along that path. Now, what resistance training has been shown, that's what I saw when I was talking about those contributors to hormones that promote the neuron growth and regeneration and sustenance and sustaining. The resistance training has really shown to be very, very, very good in that regard, on that element to help build up the insulin growth factor, and another one of the hormones that are really responsible for the neuron type thing. But
are you talking about a brain-derived neurotrophic factor, the
yes, yep,
BDNF? Yeah, yeah,
yep,
that exercise has been shown to increase BDNF, brain-derived neurotrophic factor gene expression, for instance, in the hippocampus. So when you're doing that, when you're having that happen, that's going to enhance cognitive abilities, memory, short and long-term memory. So there's a lot of reasons for where exercise is valuable for the human condition. And
beautiful. So
people, go ahead.
did you want to say anything about your personal experience, Bob?
Well, I mean, when I was in my college football days, I would, off season, I'd be working out 6 hours a day, just intense workouts and all kinds of workouts, all kinds of conditioning. But it was but throughout my life, I've always exercised some, even after I was done with competitive sports in college, I always exercised a lot, inline skating, biking, swimming, all kinds of skiing, all kinds of different exercise. I didn't get as much as I got in college, but I tell you, it made a difference. Getting some makes a huge difference, and people don't get it. Even if we get out and walk a little bit, that's just so important. And then, or biking is really great, swimming, getting in the water. Every client I work with on whatever I'm working with them on, I want to make sure they get in the water, because somebody who's in their water up to their chest weighs about 20 pounds in the water instead of 200. Right. You know what I mean? And so it's really great for the joints, because the joints almost like decompressing. Mm-hmm. So, because you weigh so little and you're buoyant. And then people can practice proper slow movement, and the water provides resistance. So the water is fantastic. I love being in the water. And so, yeah, so my personal experience is exercise is super important. And when I don't get it, I'm more mentally sluggish, like, I just am. And so that's why I go for exercise. And everybody should just go for a little bit and a little bit more, work into it slowly. Don't do anything too quickly, because you don't want to hurt yourself. And also it becomes very demoralizing when you say, okay, I'm going to go exercise, and we go out there, we do a lot of exercise, and then the next morning or the next day, we feel so terrible, and we say, okay, enough of that, I'm not doing that anymore. So slow introduction to
that's true. Paraphrase Clint Eastwood from a long time ago. A person's got to know their limitations and kind of build up from there.
Yeah, we got to live within your limitations for sure, until you expand your box, your living box, right?
That's right.
Same.
So for me, it's kind of a sum up. I've kind of gone through many things and periods in my life of intense exercise to not so much exercise, right? And I will say, as I look back over that, to one in terms of concentration, and the periods where I'm not so much is one when I was an IT executive, and there were times when I was flying across the country, very heavily engaged in trying to go become a Fortune 500 CEO, like the University of Chicago put into my head I could be. And so I was really chasing that for a while, and my amount of working out decreased in that. And what I found as I got back to it and done it in those periods is the mental stamina is up more. There have been periods where I have been like 7, 8 o'clock at night, been done. When I'm in shape and working out, I can be sharp and active up to 11:30 for a sustained period of days if I want to be and need to be. I don't want to ever continually sleep deprive myself, because that can impact another way. But if I need to be this way for a week or so, I can do so. But yeah, my concentration, memory better, mental stamina has all been better when exercise. So now what I do, we both talked about our joint injuries, and so I'm very protective of my joints now. And so now what I look to do is swim 3 days a week, between 3/4 of a mile to a mile each time, and then I do my resistance 3 days a week. I take a day off, and then I also will try to just do some form of stretching 2 or 3 times a week as well.
I'm going to have to teach you the effective muscle release technique, Tim.
Might have to. Yeah,
that's important to go along with the stretching. It's like the most effective kind of stretching you can do. It takes conventional stretching to the next level of stretching. So we'll do that sometime.
Absolutely, we'll do that. Okay, let me check and see if we've got any additional questions. I'm not seeing any over on Facebook or here with us in Zoom. So I think we've answered all the questions. Bob, anything that you'd like to,
this is really a broad topic, Tim. The effective exercise on the brain is just such a broad topic. And the brain is this incredible black box. We know so little about it, even though we've been studying it for many centuries, actually. And so we'll keep learning more and more. But I think people just need to understand, and this is the way I look at it now, after transitioning from my conventional medical research career to the holistically oriented career. The way I just want people to understand the way I look at the relationship between the mind, the brain, and the rest of the body. I consider the mind the umbrella of everything. Okay, there's the conscious mind, and then below that there's the subconscious mind, and the brain is this fantastic unknown organ that sits there waiting for directions. It's got some built-in directions. The what they call we call the autonomic nervous system. You could say that's the automatic nervous system. Keeps the heart rate going, keeps the breathing going. And then there's then there's the part of the brain where we direct the mind directs the brain what to do, and the brain is responsive to whatever the mind is telling it to do. So that's why we can think certain things and we can affect brain activity by just through our thoughts. So that's why I teach future visioning. Like, what do you really want to have happen? What do you want your brain to do? Overnight I want my brain to figure out how to get me out of back pain. Let's say I want my brain to figure out how I can wake up refreshed in the morning when I only have 5 hours of sleep, right? So the mind should, I want to tell our listeners, you always want to have your mind telling your brain what you want to accomplish. You don't have to know how the brain's going to do it. Just tell the brain what you want it to do. The brain is a phenomenal organ. It can handle so much. And so just direct it as to what you want it to do so you get the results you want.
Right. And I like the way we put that. This as a support that one person articulated to me, said, look, your mind is a supercomputer. Especially the subconscious part, you said, if you talk about what you want to do, you implant in that, let it go away and think about it, it'll bring you back the answer. And I have found that to be the case, more than not. I think if people reflect on that, where they've had challenges or a complex problem, and they just kind of put it in their mind and reflected on it, where that answer, the path to take has come to them after a day or so, I think they'd agree that that happens quite often, quite frequently.
Before I go to bed, just about every night, there's some question that I'm going to ask myself. I'm going to ask my mind and my brain to handle, whether it's my personal health, whether it's a project we're working on, whether it's a relationship issue, whatever it is. Every night I focus on something that I want to have resolved by the morning, right? I want an answer to something. I want a resolution. I want to be able to impact the situation. It's incredible how that effective that is. Right. So I recommend it. And some people pray at night before they go to bed, including your prayers. What do you want to have your mind-body connection accomplish overnight? What do you want revealed to your mind? So when you wake up in the morning, you can say, oh, wow, that's it. That's what I was waiting for, right? So I recommend everybody does that. This is an aside.
Absolutely. And that's another side, like just back on your comment, the brain is, amazing thing that we don't know everything about. I'll give you another example of that. I haven't done it as much recently. I haven't needed to because I just wake up. But I used to give myself a time to wake up. I would not set the alarm clock. I would say, I need to wake up at 5:45. You wake up at 6.
Yeah.
And I would wake up, and that would be the time. So now, how did the brain keep track of that? The brain was not looking at the clock, but did it know and did it do it? Yes, absolutely.
The internal clock is there. The brain can accomplish so much. It's amazing what the brain can do when it's under proper direction of the mind.
And as you said, it's complex. The interactions we've talked about between exercise and brain are complex. But that's part of what the audience and the feedback will tell us if we accomplish our objective. But one of our objectives is always to give a starting point, to give some actionable advice that someone could take, someone on their own, or do a little more research. And I think we've done that because we've opened up the thought that look at exercise as medicine for your brain. Look at what these three, what aerobic exercise, resistance training, and what mind-body exercise can do for you, and look at the balance. And here's some examples, and working into your daily routine. Right. Now that said, I'm about to use the word journey, but I hate that term journey. It's become so overused let me help you with your journey. I'm like, oh, okay. No.
I don't
So
know, Tim. I got to disagree with you there. I have a phrase I always use: journey to
I know,
wellness.
but I don't like the term. Every time everybody starts using it so much, it was a good phrase to start with. But once everybody starts using it, then I think it loses the power. So I will go back to the fact that this trail towards optimal wellness, towards performance, towards being, being preventative, being curative, is not one that one has to walk or trailblaze alone. They can always reach out to Dr. Bob or Tim for help in our specialties and traveling now with them as well.
Absolutely, yeah. We love to talk to people, and we have lots of clients we deal with that get our assistance and our guidance, and it's all about getting guidance. It's like Olympic athletes; they have guides, they have coaches. They wouldn't make it without it. So everybody, in terms of health, if everybody understood that the extent to which they can achieve optimal health depends on who their circle of guides are, people around them who are helping them. If they really understood that, they would go ahead and get people like us who to help, because I need to have guides around me. I go see my healthcare practitioners who I trust, like, and who help me, because without that, I can't do everything on my own. There's specialties, like all kinds of things: energy medicine workers, chiropractors, acupuncturists. At some point in time, we need to tap into all those people for their expertise when we have something going on from an ill health perspective.
Absolutely. And that's what I do from what you went into is my whole thing with my wellness plan management, right? Is you got to tap into all those people. Well, in one way or another, all those disciplines, supplementation,
Yeah.
exercise, spiritual,
Yeah.
all those, and create a plan for yourself to achieve your objectives and execute against that plan and engage the right people that can help you execute against it.
Absolutely. Yeah. It's really a function of engaging the right people who you like, them, you trust them. And most importantly, when you work with them, you get results that you want, because, it's one thing to like somebody and know them and trust them. If we're not getting the results, we got to move on to somebody else who we know, like, and
Right.
trust.
Like,
You know,
absolutely. Like
we got to get
absolutely.
the
Like
results.
I've heard you talk sometimes about the measurements you put on and the results you look for. That's the same thing I do in my work with people. I've got objectives that we agree upon and measurements for progress early on an every 2 week basis, sometimes on a monthly basis. Check and see if that progress and those results aren't happening, then we've got to adjust and get them to happen.
Exactly. That's right. Yeah, any plan. I mean, every human being, what I love about helping people with their health is that everybody's a little bit different.
Mhm.
So there's some commonality, and there's some commonalities to the pathway and to the guidance and that everybody needs, right? But then everybody's a little bit different. And so
Yeah.
you got to really tailor a program to
Yeah.
somebody.
Everybody's journey is unique.
Hey, we used to offer a program. I used to offer a program called Journey to Wellness. It was a great program. Everybody loved that name, Tim. I don't know why you don't like it.
Early on I did, but then it became everything. I used to, yeah, while I used to, one of the things I coached people on a while when I was a coach, and plan manager is different from was on weight loss, and then people start saying, "Can you help me on my weight loss journey?" And so everything became a journey. So it's not that it's a bad term. I just think of its
Could be overused.
power. Yes.
Could be overused. Yeah.
Right.
So, but then you came up with a trail, and I don't know if I can get into the trail. Maybe it's a pathway. I don't know.
That's okay.
The pathway to wellness.
Well, I used to, I guess we're getting a little bit off topic here, but that's all right. When I was I remember I was a Midwest guy and actually born out West. And I used to read a lot of old authors, Zane Grey and what's the guy, Louis L'Amour, wrote all the Western writers. So that was always a trail. Yeah. That wasn't a pathway. That was a trail they were traveling.
There
So
you go.
that's,
Hey, I saw that Cheryl took her mute button off, and Cheryl's been with us a lot. I wonder if Cheryl wants to say anything or ask a question or contribute.
sure.
Are you there, Cheryl? I heard something.
Yeah.
I
Yeah,
heard. There she is. How are you?
good, good.
Yeah, it's nice to have you with us every week.
Yes, I loved hearing about the movement stuff. My uncle died of Parkinson's, and I've seen my hand shake too, but I love learning about this so we can learn, what to look for. And I love the different ways that movement can help. I was really amazed.
Cheryl, I encourage you to contact me, and I'll provide you a free consultation, and you can tell me what's going on, and I can make some suggestions for you. I'd be happy to do that if you like.
Okay, thank you very much.
You're welcome.
So let's do that, Bob. So I'll put that in let me put this. What contact would you like put in the chat for Cheryl?
Yeah, just the drbob@boblevine.com. That would be good. That's my email address. And, you can throw my cell phone number in there. She can text me, or call Cheryl. You can do that. That'd be fine.
Okay.
I'll get back to you if I can't take the call, or if I have to text respond to you, I'll do that.
Thank you so much.
All
You're
right,
welcome.
Tim,
Yeah. I mean, I've got I can tell you some stories about my work with Parkinsonism, some of which are quite dramatic. It's been quite surprising. You'll be, I think you'd be impressed at hearing about them, because that's a challenging condition. After a while, there's no good answer. After the typical and usual drugs, wear off after a few years, then people tend to go downhill a little bit. So, but I love working on essential tremor, which is thought to be a strongly genetically based condition. And the thing I don't like about us saying that things are strongly genetic is that has people thinking that, oh, well, it's genetic, there's no way out, right? So that's why I don't deal with any of that. I don't deal with diagnoses. I mean, I can hear the diagnosis. What I deal with symptoms. What are your symptoms? What are you feeling? Where does it hurt? What's going on? And then we work from the symptoms, because I don't care what the diagnosis is. If I can get rid of the symptoms, the diagnosis doesn't matter anymore, right? And if I can do something that has people get off of drugs because they don't need them anymore, that's the best thing in the world, because every drug has some side effects. There's not a drug ever that doesn't have some side effects. They may not affect everybody the same way, but they're there. And so, it's important to think about, if I'm on a long-term medication, how can I work with my physicians who prescribe those medications to me? How can I work with them to find out how I might be able to get off of these things, And then so I'm not causing myself to be affected by the permanent side effects that come with taking long-term medications. So that's my take on that.
All right.
Should we wrap up?
Yep, we're about ready to wrap up here. So Cheryl, so you've got there, if you want to save the chat, you've got Dr. Bob's email and phone there that you can use and reach out to him for that free consultation.
Yeah, just click on the three dots at the top of the chat area, and it'll say save chat, and then it'll automatically put it in a Zoom folder on your computer. So you probably already know all that, but anyway, just
in case. All right, so Bob, it's been a pleasure being here with you today and covering this topic I consider very important.
Yeah.
And I want to thank our guests here who joined us, on Zoom and on Facebook and TikTok. And I do hope you come back again and bring a friend. Thank you.
See you next. Yeah, we'll see you next week. We're going to do more on exercise. It's going to be really fun. This is a great topic. It's really an important topic. So I'm looking forward to being back here, Tim, and working with you and Breck, and get Breck back in the saddle, and we'll have some more fun next week.
Sounds good.